Hello.
Hello AOS fans.
It's the Agents of Embergard.
And in this video we're having a look at the new Edge of the Knife Rivals deck.
This one's beating me. I can't think of a song for Edge of the Knife, so stick them any songs you can think of in the comments below.
Like a knife.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work, doesn't
no.
So yeah, stick that in the comments below. But we are going through the Edge of the Knife deck, which GW have sent us, and thank you very much for that, GW. We're going to run through the cards. We're going to tell you what the deck's about, summarise some of the cards that we think are great, some that we think are rubbish, and what we would probably pair this deck with other decks and warbands.
I mean, it's worth saying, out of the blocks, this is a deck designed for Horde warbands.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying that idea that they've actually thought about those 2 wound fighter warbands and come up with something that helps them.
Yeah, there are a few little shenanigans. You could maybe think about taking it with a slightly less Horde warband, but I think basically this is for your Horde warbands.
And the reason why we say it's for Horde warbands is because it's got a plot card, or at least we think it's got a plot card.
Well, it does have a plot card, but it's quite funny because my first thought, well, this isn't a plot card. Do you know why? It doesn't say on it it's a plot card
anywhere, and it doesn't say on the other card that lists all the cards either.
Literally nowhere does it say it's a plot card. Now, it's worth saying, when we looked a bit deeper into it, and thanks to Matt's from Critical Focus channel for this in our back scenes conversation, the Countdown to Cataclysm doesn't have a plot card. Well, it does have a plot card, but it doesn't have a plot card written on it either.
No, again, it doesn't mention it anywhere. So you literally, the only way you know it's got a plot card is because the article says so and the box says so.
It says it on the back of the box. It's the only place. So this is a plot card, even though it doesn't say it is a plot card.
Which is it's another one of those things where GW said, oh, we're going to come up with like different deck styles because this is a flex deck.
Yes.
Again, doesn't say anywhere that it's a flex deck other than the box. And that's it. So a new player coming in who gets this and opens it and takes cards and throws box, it could be like, how do I know what this is? Yeah,
I have a slight theory about those deck names. I think they're meaningless, and that's why they don't refer to them, because the deck is how you use it.
I think there are certain ones, some lean a bit more aggro, the rest are pretty much all flex.
Yeah.
And some have a little bit of shenanigans in there, which is what they've called mastery. Yeah. But it's probably aggro with like a counter or something like that.
It's even more meaningless with the warbands, because they're just like, it's just like playing with what you want, don't get too hung up about on what they say.
Yeah, I mean, certain ones like, Jaws of Itzel, they're definitely going to go more aggro than the Sepulchral Guard, who are definitely going to go a bit more take and hold, but overall you can pretty much do most stuff with most of them anyway still.
100%. But we digress.
We digress. So the Edge of the Knife card, plot card that comes in the box that says, whilst using this Rivals deck, fighters with a health characteristic of 2 or less and /or 2 or more damage tokens are tempered. So you can have a 5 wound fighter with 2 damage tokens and they're tempered, or you can have your Sepulchral Guard Petitioner and he's tempered too. Yeah,
I mean, pretty much all of the Sepulchral Guard are tempered from the beginning, aren't they, more or less?
Except for the big lad, obviously, but other than him, everyone's tempered. But there's probably some shenanigans, as we mentioned, in this deck to help you temper them too.
There are. That 100% are.
So we're going to run through all the cards now.
There are 4 duplicates in the power cards and 1 reused objective. So on the power card side, you've got Sidestep as the only ploy that's in other decks.
It's a nice card.
And then you've got 3 upgrades. There's Sharpen Points, which gives cleave. And there's a Deadly Aim, which I think gives you Ensnare, and there's Great Fortitude, which makes you greatly fortuitous.
Yeah, which isn't bad, especially if you take some damage.
Yeah, 100%. So they're the same. And the reused objective is Aggressive Defender, which you get for making an attack on an objective.
Yeah.
While standing on an objective. So
start with the Surge cards, and a good one is Double Team. It's 1 glory, as all Surge cards are, and you score this immediately after a friendly fighter's successful attack if the target was flanked by a friendly fighter. Getting somebody next to somebody and then attacking them should be pretty easy to do.
Should be pretty straightforward. So the next one is Immovable.
You just moved it.
There's a Surge card. The score this immediately after an opponent's action step if a friendly fighter was the target of an attack in that action step while they were tempered and the target was not slain.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's a little bit dicey because you've got to survive, and obviously you've only got 2 wounds. But if you're a 2 dodge 2 wound.
Yeah, Thorns might quite like that one.
Yeah, and some of the new gits. So that's a pretty good card.
Not a bad one at all. Next we've got a Sneak into Position. It's another Search for 1 glory. Scores immediately after an opponent's action step if 2 or more tempered friendly fighters are adjacent to the same enemy fighter. I mean, that might not be too hard to pull off once you've got a few bodies surging across the board and just tying up lots of opponents.
It kind of goes well with double team as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. So that's not a bad card to have.
The next surge is behind enemy lines, and you can probably guess the sort of thing that this is going to be. Score this immediately after an opponent's action step if a tempered friendly fighter holds a feature token in enemy territory. So again, moving your port across the board at pace, trying to get on as many tokens as you can. Like if you can get on 2 tokens,
just swarming along the board,
you're pretty much guaranteed to score it because you can't knock it off both. Yeah, so that's pretty good, I think.
One that we don't think is quite so good with the surges is power in numbers, which you score immediately after an action step if 3 or more tempered fighters with no move tokens are adjacent. If you are the underdog, you can score this if 2 or more tempered fighters with no move tokens are adjacent. As an underdog one, that could be quite nice because you've got several 2 hex starters.
But I don't like playing into the underdog thing. I mean, maybe, but you're relying on it, and then after that, it's
you've got to rely on a side step, or if you haven't got it in the first round, you could start to try and bunch some of your fighters up, knowing it's coming. But
I mean, if you've got, I don't know whether there are many War Scroll cards that have a bit of push tech in them to help.
Yeah,
you push
there's a little bit of
things.
some of them. So.
But it's warband dependent. That one. It's not one I love.
Watch that being in the top 10 of all the warbands coming out.
100%.
So now we're moving on to the end phase cards, and we're going to start with the good ones there. Starting off with Calm Before the Storm. It's a 2 glory card, which is nice. Score this in end phase if there are any damaged fighters and those fighters are not adjacent. Now this is the one that you had to talk to Mats about, wasn't it?
Yes, so he asked me, what does it mean?
What the hell?
Adjacent to what? And I think the answer is adjacent to one another.
Yes, I think in that situation, in plain English, would be they're not adjacent to each other. But for the sake of another couple of words, it could have just said, and those injured fighters, or those damaged fighters are not adjacent to each other, or something like, or other damaged fighters, or could have been a couple more words and it would have been 100% clearer. Yeah,
for 2 glory, that feels like you're going to score that at some point. Now, I can see a situation where it could be a bit annoying. You've got 2 damaged fighters, but they're standing next to each other. But in theory, you could score it with just 1 damaged fighter.
Yeah, and also with a lot of Horde warbands, you're like, but they never stand next to each other when they're injured because they just die.
Well, so there is that, yes.
Splat dead. Oh. There we go. I'm not next to anybody anymore. Yeah,
I think you would take that.
Definitely more with the more hoardy warbands, I think.
Yes. Although, of course, if you take it with a bigger warband, then you've got fewer fighters to not be next to each other.
That's true.
I'm not sure you take this deck with big fighters anyway.
Possibly not, but you know, it can be any fighter. So it can just be if you manage to ping damage one of your opponent's fighters, but he just keeps killing all of yours off, you'd score it then too. So
now the next 2 I'm actually going to do together because it's quite funny. There's Risky Position and 2-pronged Assault, which, you know, read into that what you will. Score this in an end phase if a tempered friendly fighter is in enemy territory. That's 1 glory. Tempered friendly fighter in enemy territory.
Yep.
2-pronged Assault, 1 glory. Score this in end phase if 2 or more tempered friendly fighters are in enemy territory. They're the same glory, but this one is twice as hard as that one. Yeah. I could see why they didn't just put in like Risky Position ×2 or another Risky Position or this is another 5 risky position you've got us into for 1 glory, but it does feel like that should be 2 glory. Yeah.
Why have they done that?
Or 1 glory, and we'll not call it 2-pronged Assault, 1 glory if it's 2, but maybe 2 glory if it's 3 or more.
3 or more. So yeah, something that's just a little bit different. That does just feel like they got a bit bored.
Yeah, it's really strange as well because this risky position. If you're going to take one of these, it's going to be Risky Position.
Yeah, every single time. And then the next one on the list, and these are moving into the riskier
I've got the
territory.
Risky character. I don't think they're bad, but you do need. I think definitely this one. Definitely. You have to build around it.
Yeah, and we're not going to tell you about it. No, it is a Trial of the Tempered. You score this in end phase if each fighter is tempered. Knowing you have to get 2 wounds on all of your enemy fighters if you haven't got shenanigans in there to temper them all.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever take that. It's 3 glory, which is nice, but no.
And there aren't very many ways of tempering your enemy fighters in the power cards. So I think there may be builds to do it, but I feel like you put that in your deck and then you come back to Jaws of Itzel and you're like,
guess I won't score that then.
Yeah, so, and it's 3 glory, so I don't know. Similarly, All In, I think you've got to really play for All In. It is only worth 1 glory.
Yeah, All In is score this in the end phase if there are no tempered friendly fighters in friendly territory and any tempered friendly fighters are in neutral or enemy territory.
It's good at the end of the game, maybe.
Could be if everyone did or something, but you've got to have any, haven't you? So
you've got to have 1 alive.
You've got to have at least 1.
Yeah, but I mean, it's possible that by the end of the game, you've only got 1 or 2 alive, and they're
Possibly.
both in enemy territory. But it feels like early game in a Horde warband, you're like, oh.
It feels like maybe those sort of like those 5-fighter, more Horde warbands, because you know your big fighters are probably going to mostly be dead near the end of the game, and your small fighters that are still alive just peg it across the board. But for 1 glory, that doesn't feel hyper rewarding.
No, like the Warden's never going to take that, because it's like, well, I really don't want to get into it.
Ever.
Yeah.
Unless he's dead and everyone's just going to rush. But yeah, again, I don't really see that one being. And the last one we've got is Usurper.
Oh, this one is rubbish, I think.
I think this could be rubbish. Scoreless in end phase if an enemy leader was slain by a tempered friendly fighter this battle round. The only time I could see that being remotely good is if you've taken like a hyper aggro warband, and that's for 2 glory. If you take like a hyper aggro warband, like Morgox or Jaws or something, and you get somebody with 2 wound tokens on them, so they're then tempered, and then you just go health lever at the boss. And if the boss happens to be like Zarbag or something like that, maybe you could score that much easier. But yeah, again,
I don't really like cards which are specific to 1 fighter on the board.
No.
Because not only have you got to have a tempered fighter, you've also got to have a tempered fighter at the same time as you've killed the leader. And if it comes out after you've killed the leader, then or it means you can't attack the leaders who you've got that card. And then if you don't kill the leader and you've got that card, what do you do? I just think it
feels to me a bit like, you know, one of those cards they put into decks sometimes that just doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of the deck. I don't know, maybe I
certainly feel like that would be hard to score in a Rivals format if you're playing with the Horde warband.
Yeah, I do think so.
It's like, well,
unless you just work on pinging the enemy leader down, and then you just get your little petitioner in there to stab them.
It's not worth it.
No. So those are the objective cards. We're now going to move on to the power cards.
Okay, so my first choice is Final Stand, ironically. In the next action step, tempered friendly fighters cannot be pushed.
Not a bad one.
So if you're playing that with Pillage and Plunder or Emberstone Sentinels, and you've got where you want to be at the end of the round, you play that.
Bang, there you go.
And I like it because it's all fighters, all the tempered ones.
Yeah.
So it's not like that one where you have to pick a fighter and then the opponent just attacks somebody else. Or, you know, it's
all fighters. It's a bit like Hold the Line.
Yeah.
Next one is Opportunity Strikes. It's another surge card, and you play this immediately after you pick a weapon as part of an attack for a tempered friendly fighter. That weapon has +1 attack dice for that attack. +1 attack dice, always nice.
Yeah, it's like a free extra determined effort.
It is kind of, yeah.
Fake Out is the next one. Pick an enemy fighter with a health characteristic of 3 or more that is adjacent to a tempered friendly fighter, and then roll an attack dice. If the roll contains any hammers or swords, inflict 1 damage on that fighter and then give that fighter a stagger token. If you're the underdog, you could also include crits.
That's not bad. Not bad.
That's all right. I mean, that's a ping damage with 50-50 ping damage, isn't it? You know, possibly better if you're the underdog. So that's reasonably good.
And they don't have to be not vulnerable.
No.
So you could potentially kill a vulnerable fighter with that.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
I think that's all right.
The next one we've got in our middling pack is Running Riot. This is another surge card. There's a lot of surge ones in this. Play this immediately after a tempered friendly fighter's successful attack. You can pick another friendly fighter, and that fighter is tempered. Quite handy if you've got some non-tempered fighters like your ward and things like that, and you want to temper them.
Yeah,
that's the card for you, basically.
Yeah, if you can get a hit off.
Most of the Horde warbands have 1 or 2 still tempered fighters that aren't too bad, so you can use that in that situation to then get your other bigger lads in tempered as well.
If for some random reason you are playing this with a 3-fighter warband and one of them is nearly injured and they get a hit off, you can then temper one of your other ones.
Yeah.
So it's got utility. It's got utility. Next one is Spiteful Traps. Pick an enemy fighter with a health characteristic of 3 or more within 2 hexes of your leader. Give that fighter a move token. Yeah, it's not brilliant, but I can see where it could have utility. It could be quite good towards the end of the game.
Yeah.
When your opponent's winding up for a final charge and you go,
actually, not so much. Yeah. No charging for you, Crowjacks. And the next one in our middling section is Synchronized Effort. You can pick 2 tempered friendly fighters within 4 hexes of each other, remove those fighters from the battlefield, and then place each in the hex the other was removed from. Might come in useful on occasion.
I always want those cards to be better than they actually are. You know what I mean? I've always get very excited. There's been a few like that over the years of Underworlds. I think, oh, that's brilliant, that's really good.
Even back with the Eyes of the 9 where they had to swap the 2.
And then you start, actually, it never made the cut ever.
No.
If you have played something like Running Riot, and so you've tempered Moloch, after hitting with the bat squig, I can see why that could be useful. It's okay, well, Moloch's now tempered. switch them over, and Monog standing out there. So I can see it does have utility in a black powder build or a Monog build or something like that. Yeah. Final middling card is the Uprising. All friendly fighters are tempered in the next action step. So again, it's got utility in a Monog build.
You could use it with a synchronised effort one.
Exactly.
Again.
You could use it to help you with that one with having adjacent tempered fighters when you're trying to get support.
The surge cards as well.
Yeah, so it's got utility. It depends on your build on that one, whether you take it or not.
And then we're getting to the bad cards here, and it is Death Throes. Pick a tempered friendly fighter. In the next action step, attacks that target this fighter have -2 attack dice. Now you put that in the bad pile. I'm not so sure that that's not all right in certain situations. If you run a fighter onto an objective, you're like, I do not want that fighter to die, then you can put that on, and then people can be like, I'm just not going to go after him because I'm only going to be rolling 1 dice.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I'm not a fan of those cards. I hadn't really thought about it in terms of the objective, I suppose. I just think the person just goes and attacks somebody else when you play that card. But there are times when you really, really don't want
to. I don't mind you attacking someone else as long as you don't attack this guy on this objective, because that's in the middle territory, and then I'll score that objective holding all the objectives in one territory or something like that.
Yeah, I just feel like you've got to have that in hand when that happens, and there are probably better cards to have in hand that are useful more times in the game. So
possibly.
I'm never a fan of those ones which you basically have to put down, and it's like, well, I'm literally just going to run around that fighter.
There's definitely that.
But that's a personal preference, and I'm not actually very good at the game, so maybe I'm completely wrong.
So now we're going to move on to the upgrades. Starting with the good ones. Robin, would you like to do the honours?
I'm almost impervious to the first one, which is impervious.
Well, that's really lucky.
Well, while this fighter is tempered, save rolls for this fighter cannot be affected by cleave and ensnare.
So it's a bit like there's a few in the Pillage and Plunder deck and things where it's like you can't get cleave or ensnare.
It's like the blade. It's almost as good as blade catcher, which is banned.
Almost as good as that, but not quite. And it's not a bad card. I think that's. And how many glory is that one?
1.
That's one. So
I think that's pretty good, especially in a situation where you've managed to temper Monog.
Yeah.
Stick it on Monog. I know it doesn't get rid of Grievous against him, but it does get rid of Cleave against him, which is really strong. Yeah. So I think that's a good card.
It's not a bad card at all. Next one we've got is Mobbed. When this fighter attacks, if the target is within 3 hexes of any other friendly fighters, the target is flanked and surrounded for that attack. That's not bad at all if you're going to have it with a Horde Warband anyway.
Exactly.
That could be quite nice. It is 2 glory, but to really increase your chances of hitting somebody, that's not a bad one to have.
Next up we have Pete in card form. Ooh. It's Pesky Nuisance.
Oh. I thought you were talking about Dark Horse.
Pesky Nuisance. Enemy fighters adjacent to this fighter must target this fighter with any attacks. It's 2 glory, a 2 glory upgrade, but it's a bit like Fury of Akshi. It's not quite as good, but it kind of like, well, actually now you've got to fight me. Yeah. It's got utility.
Especially if you've got like a Mollog or something like that again. Like, bring it home.
Yeah. Or even if you haven't, even if your Mollog's nearly dead, you stick it on backsqueak. Oh, now you've got to fight. Now you can't
have a go at Mollog.
Exactly.
So now we're coming to the middling cards, and this one's all about you. It's a Dark Horse. This fighter is tempered. Must be dull. 1 glory, but it is quite nice if you've just got your Mollogs sitting there and they're not tempered, and you're like, I can't wait for my power card to come out. Boom, there we go.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it's got uses.
It's got its uses.
It's not exciting, but it's useful.
If you did have a very injured tempered Mollog, which I suppose he'd be tempered anyway, so you wouldn't need to.
He'd be very ill-tempered.
But he would be ill-tempered. You could use Fueled by Pain, which is a 1 range 1 attack, and it has X hammers, 2 damage, with crit and snare. X is equal to the number of damage tokens this fighter has.
That could be nasty.
So it's pretty good. If you had great strength, then you couldn't use the ensnare then. But if you had great strength, it'd be like 6 dice, 2 damage for something. It could be good.
That could be really nasty.
Yeah,
but you've got to have one of those like big guy warbands. That could be quite scary.
The only thing I think you might not take, it's only 1 glory. You might not use it very much, is because actually the attacks of the big guys are normally pretty good anyway.
Possibly.
So it's kind of like, well, actually, it's quite accurate, but I'm doing more damage if I just use base attack or something. So I'm not 100% sure I agree with it. That's why it's only in the middle.
Warband specific, I think. You have to look at your fighters and see which ones. I mean, on like Black Powder or something like that, because he's got 8 wounds, that could get quite silly.
And there are times when what you really need is to hit
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you don't pile on the damage, you just need to hit.
You just want to hit.
So if you can roll lots of dice, then that can obviously help.
Then you're almost guaranteed to miss in that situation.
Yeah.
So now we're on to the bad ones, and the first one is Lash Out, because lashing out is always bad.
I think this is actually the only bad card, because the remaining ones are...
repeated.
Yeah.
Now this is a Surge card with Thrash.
Oh.
Immediately after this fighter is slain, before removing them from the battlefield, roll a number of save dice equal to the battle round. For each shield, give an enemy fighter within 2 hexes of this fighter a move token. Yeah, I can't say I'd ever take that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be great at the end of the game,
but you've got to have the right fighter in the right place
and roll the right dice,
and they've got to have that upgrade on, and you've got to get the shields.
Yeah, it doesn't seem
too many stars to align for that one.
Absolutely. So there are 3 left, as I said, but which are the same. The astute amongst you will notice that there's 2 cards missing,
and they're not. They're here. We've looked at these, and
we're thoroughly confused.
Yeah, whilst we're recording this, we had originally put them in the great pile, and then we put them in the terrible pile, and then we realised, oh no, when you read one, you can read it one way, and when you read the other, you can read it the other way. So we're not actually sure which way to read it. Now, they could either both be great, or they could both be terrible.
The only way you can read this one makes this one better.
Yes.
But you don't know what they are, so maybe we ought to explain.
Yeah, so the first one is Power from Death, and it says, play this immediately after a friendly fighter with a bounty of 1 or more is slain by an enemy fighter. All good so far. One of your fighters is killed by an enemy, and they're worth at least 1 bounty. There is a question mark around what happens if they've been a raised fighter, they're no longer worth bounties, so does that count, or is it just the value on the card? Blah, blah. If that fighter was tempered before inflicting the damage that would slay them, draw up to 3 power cards. Now, drawing 3 power cards for having one of your little minions killed is great, but it's not 100% clear if the fighter dealing the damage is tempered or the fighter taking the damage was tempered.
Yeah, the way I originally thought that worked is that basically if you were tempered before you were killed, you draw 3 cards.
Yeah.
And I thought that's brilliant.
And then we thought, but it says before inflicting the damage. So the person who's attacking is the one inflicting the damage. So they have to be tempered. Yeah. So the attacking fighter has to be tempered before they kill your minion.
Which makes it less good, because
it makes it worse.
Big fighters that are going to kill your minions probably aren't going to be tempered. It all depends on what inflicting means. Because when you read Parting Shot, an upgrade, a 1 glory upgrade with Pyrrhic Strike, immediately after this fighter is slain by an enemy fighter, before removing from the battlefield, pick an enemy fighter within 2 hexes of them. Fairly straightforward so far.
So far, so good.
Give that fighter a stagger token.
Right, got that.
If this fighter was tempered before inflicting the damage that would slay them, inflict 1 damage on that fighter. It's utterly, thoroughly confusing, because if this fighter was tempered before inflicting the damage that would slay them, inflict 1 damage on that fighter. Now, it can't be the same fighter that did the damage, because you can pick any fighter within 2 hexes.
Yeah.
So I think inflict literally means when you put the tokens on them.
Which would make Power from Death better again, because it would be basically a case of if any of enemy fighters kills one of your tempered fighters, as long as they were tempered before the attack was made, then you can draw 3 power cards. And I think that possibly that's how they should have worded it. If that fighter was tempered before the attack was made.
Yes.
Because then you haven't got all this inflicting damage. Well, is it the person inflicting the damage, or is it the inflicting of damage?
Yeah, exactly. It's really really badly worded. So I think this one basically means if they weren't tempered, you just stagger them, and if they were tempered, then you get to stagger and do a damage.
Yes.
And the inflicting is literally when you put the tokens on them. So that card is pretty good, because it basically means when any of your weak fighters are killed, you get to draw 3 power cards.
Yeah.
Quite often in Horde Warbands, drawing power cards is king.
Yeah, because you want all your movie stuff and all that kind of thing. So your popcorn and your large Diet Coke. And we left these 2 till last, even though we're probably both convinced that it is the better way of doing it, just because it's typical terrible GW wording.
Yeah, I mean, assuming we've read it right, again, Parting Shot is pretty good, because it's not restricted to vulnerable or non-vulnerable fighters, so you can put this on a fighter on an objective, and it's like, well, you can come at me, but if you kill me, then I'm going to do a damage to you.
And so if you're vulnerable, because it's your last desperate attempt to knock me out, then you're going to die too.
So I think they're both quite good cards.
Yeah, but good cards. Terribly written, both going to need an errata just to clarify for all of those people who are going to go, is the definition of is this, or are we going to get into some real Bill Clinton defence sort of thing here?
I literally didn't notice either of those until I tried to read them out loud.
And it's the minute you start reading out loud, you're like, well, is inflicting the person inflicting? Or, terrible wording, probably very good cards. Overall, I think this deck is quite nice.
I think it has some fun potential. I'm not quite bright enough to work out how good it will be, but I think it will really boost Horde warbands, which I think they probably do need it, because even though people are playing some Sentinels and Cataclysm, they tend to be playing them with the more brutal warbands.
Yeah.
So even though there is some objective holding going on, it tends to be, it's my big guy standing on it and you can't get me off because he's massive.
Yep.
Whereas this is going to say, try a Horde warband, see what you can do with it.
I like that this is going to work quite nicely with Thorns, Sepulchral Guard, the Exiled Dead, not that you can play them in competitive anymore, those kind of Horde ones, but also the 5 and 6 fighter warbands where a lot of them are 2 wounds, or a lot of them are going to get wounded, a bit like the Gardeners and stuff like that. So there's going to be lots of opportunities to get them into that state. And also, even your 3 and your 4 fighter warbands, some people are going to try this out without, once you get your fighters all wounded, then they're all going to be tempered. So that's quite a nice little touch there.
I'm quite worried about, I've seen what Martin can do with Mollog. I'm a bit worried about what Mollog could do with this, and I'm hopeful that it might make Black Powder quite interesting too.
I do like the fact that there's no card in here where I just look at it, unlike with Reckless Fury, just think that's broken.
That's bust.
That's just really bad. There's a couple of cards in there where it's like, if you've got a really wounded Mollog, this could be quite nasty on him. But you've got to have a really wounded Mollog, and in that situation, it's only one reliable attack away from having a really dead Mollog.
Yeah,
so
exactly. I mean, if you're always pain, you're going to get one accurate hit off, but after that, he's probably going to die.
You are literally on the edge of a knife with playing that. So there you go. That's probably why they picked that name.
So that is the Edge of the Knife deck.
If you've got any questions about any of the cards and you'd like us to run through them, please do stick it in the comments below.
Or if you do work out what inflict means in this context, do let us know in the comments below.
And let us know what warbands or other deck pairings you're looking forward to trying this out with.
So yeah, I reckon probably Sentinels, Pillage and Plunder, possibly Cataclysm, because everything seems to go with Cataclysm. But let us know what you think.
Don't forget to click that like button.
And click that subscribe button.
And ring that bell so you get notified of all the other videos that we do about Underworlds coming up in the future.
And do consider supporting us on Patreon too. There's a link in the description below, and we have loads of fun over there on our Patreon Discord, and you do get the odd battle report that doesn't ever make it out into the real world.
So we'll see you soon, probably in the Underworlds.